Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Montgomery County Council session for January the 20th. We're going to kick off the day with a proclamation recognizing Human Trafficking Prevention Day by Councilmember Don Lutke. We have an issue with the mics, so we'll be creative today. Go ahead, Don.
Good morning. If everyone who is here for today's proclamation could come forward, and also we'll be using these two microphones down here since we have some other audio challenges this morning. Great. Thank you so much for all for joining us this morning. We are here to honor Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month. And I am grateful that Montgomery County takes the time to do this every year, and also that we have such a dedicated team of folks from different offices, different disciplines, standing behind me who represent those folks who put time and effort into this work, into educating the public about the importance of being aware of what human trafficking is, looking for signs, knowing how to report. We take this incredibly seriously. And there are a lot of misconceptions about what human trafficking is or isn't. There are different kinds. It can be both sex trafficking and labor trafficking. And it affects vulnerable people as the victims of all ages and all walks of life. And I think that sometimes gets lost. Sometimes, particularly if folks think about children and human trafficking, they think only about female children. That's not correct. It can affect all children. They often don't realize it can affect senior citizens as well. It can. It does. And it's important to recognize those signs, those pieces. Our county does a tremendous job in public awareness campaigns. Please do read. Please do reach out. Please do check the information that the county offers to help educate our residents about this issue. And please, if you see something, say something. Again, we have a tremendous team assembled behind me who work on different facets of this issue, and everyone is here to help support that common goal, which is to keep our residents safe. With that, I want to acknowledge our speakers who will be here today, and we will hear from Captain John O'Brien, who oversees our Special Investigations Division with the Montgomery County Police Department, Wendy Stickle, who serves as the chair of the Human Trafficking Prevention Commission, which I sit on, and Debbie Feinstein, who is from our state's attorney's office, and she's the chief of our Special Victims Division. But I did want to let the others assembled here introduce themselves. The only thing I ask is use your stage voice, because these are the only two microphones we have. So I can't pass it around, starting here.
Martha, I'm with Trauma Services Program for Montgomery County.
Rosalia Scottman, and I'm the manager for Trauma Services.
Tony Gibby, I'm the community educator for Montgomery County Trauma Services.
Kayla Wallington, I'm a mental health therapist for Montgomery County Trauma Services.
Ellen Smedley, manager with Licensure and Regulatory Services.
Debbie Feinstein, State's Attorney's Office.
Hi everybody, my name is Julia. I'm Regional Navigator for Montgomery County Prince George's with the University of Maryland State Center.
I'm John McCarthy, State's Attorney for Montgomery County. I work for the wonderful Debbie Feinstein.
Good morning, Keena Jones, Assistant Sheriff at the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office.
Good morning, Maxwell Wee. I'm the Sheriff here in Montgomery County.
Good morning, Lieutenant Dan Helton with Special Investigations Division.
Good morning, Wendy Stickle, Chair of the committee.
Good morning, Jody Finkelstein, Executive Director of the committee. And if I might just want to take a moment to congratulate Alex Smedley, who's been with the county for over 30 years with HHS. And she is retiring at the end of this month, and she has been doing this work for a very long time. So thank you for your service. Thank you. Thank you.
John O'Brien, Montgomery County Police. Marcia Liss, formerly retired from the Department of Justice in Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking, and I'm a community member because it's a good job during retirement.
Without further ado, Captain O'Brien.
Good morning. My name is John O'Brien. I am the Director of the Montgomery County Police Department Special Investigation Division. Our division is committed to combating human trafficking, and within it, the Vice and Intelligence Unit leads the way. Over the past year, we've seen a rise in tips about illicit websites advertising massage parlors across Montgomery County. Working closely with Health and Human Services, our detectives discovered that many of these establishments lack the required licenses to operate. As a result of this discovery, the Vice and Intelligence Unit has adopted a proactive approach, conducting unannounced spa inspections. During each inspection, detectives interview every employee, asking targeted questions, specifically asking about sex and labor trafficking. We also provide each employee with a resource card listing all services offered by Montgomery County. Our inspections follow a 3-tier approach: victim outreach, civil enforcement when appropriate, and criminal enforcement when necessary. These operations have been successful, not only in educating spa and massage owners, but also locating victims and enforcing laws tied to massage therapy practices. Since launching this initiative, we've conducted 44 spa inspections, issuing over 40 civil citations, and charging 12 spa owners and managers with felonies for aiding and abetting unlicensed massage therapy. One spa even closed its lease after it was terminated by the property owner. Looking ahead, we're introducing landlord engagement program. This year, letters will go out to property managers leasing businesses suspected of prostitution or human trafficking. Other jurisdictions have seen great success with this approach, and we're optimistic it will have a major impact here in Montgomery County. As we continue to develop our current tactics, rolling out new initiatives, and developing innovative enforcement techniques, we remain committed to making this year a turning point in the fight against human trafficking. On behalf of our division, I want to thank the Human Trafficking Prevention Committee, the Montgomery County State's Attorney's Office, and the County Council for their unwavering support.
Thank you, Captain O'Brien. And I can say, having been on those inspections, what an outstanding job the team does who conducts those inspections, and how much they are doing to both keep the customers safe and also the employees safe. So I greatly appreciate that work. With that, we're going to hear from Chair Wendy Stickle.
Thank you to County Executive Elrich and the County Council for this proclamation and your continued commitment to combating human trafficking here in Montgomery County. The Montgomery County Human Trafficking Prevention Committee has been working hard to raise awareness on this important topic. A recent story that captured national attention involved a missing 13-year-old girl from Kentucky who was found safe in Silver Spring last month. She went missing in October after meeting up with an older man and traveling with him to Florida and then Maryland. The man was charged with kidnapping, claiming he believed the young girl was 18. Although this story has a positive ending, not all do. This highlights the ongoing risk of exploitation faced by young people here in Montgomery County, in Maryland, and across the country. The Montgomery County Human Trafficking Prevention Committee, alongside our law enforcement partners, county agencies, and local service providers, remains dedicated to ensuring such exploitation does not happen in our county. Our focus on raising awareness, reducing vulnerabilities, and enforcing relevant state and local laws are critical in meeting our goal of eliminating exploitation. Events such as this offer a unique opportunity to raise awareness for our local officials as well as the broader Montgomery County community. As I just mentioned, awareness building is a primary goal of the committee. Throughout the year, we conduct trainings for any group who asks. Just last week, the committee co-sponsored a regional conference for an audience of transportation workers from across the state. We were thrilled to see several of our very own MCPS transportation workers in attendance. It reflects the broader commitment of our county agencies in combating this challenging issue. You just heard about the wonderful work Montgomery County Police is doing in collaboration with DHHS to make our spas and Body Works establishments safer in the county. I said this last year and I'll say it again. Citizens and non-citizens alike are vulnerable to sex and labor trafficking and exploitation. When layered with vulnerabilities such as age, food insecurity, housing insecurity, drug addiction, gang involvement, and/or child welfare involvement, the risk of exploitation escalates. The Montgomery County Human Trafficking Committee has served and will continue to serve as a vehicle for collaboration to reduce vulnerabilities. We continue to raise awareness, offer services, and create smart policies and practices to protect all of those, and especially our young people and vulnerable workers living, working, and visiting Montgomery County and the DC region from exploitation. Make sure to keep your ears and eyes open over the next few months as we roll out an unprecedented human trafficking awareness campaign here in Montgomery County. Everyone can contribute to reducing and eliminating human trafficking in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. And now we'll hear from Debbie Feinstein.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Feinstein. I'm Chief of the Special Victims Division for the Montgomery County State's Attorney's Office. And to be clear, I work for this guy, State's Attorney John McCarthy. I have the privilege of supervising the division within the State's Attorney's Office that prosecutes the human trafficking violations and child exploitation cases. In our division, we do not work alone. One of the things that I want to share with the public is that we really take a collaborative approach here in Montgomery County to prosecuting crime. We don't silo ourselves and separate ourselves from the other agencies. We work closely with the Vice Division that was mentioned earlier and with Health and Human Services, not only to ensure the investigation of the cases, but also to ensure safety and hopefully healing for victims of human trafficking. Some of the cases that we've had recently involve that new law, aiding and abetting unlicensed massage parlor operation. And in those cases, we work closely with the police department to target individuals who are knowingly operating or supporting unlicensed massage parlors. And this is a really important piece because when they're unlicensed, then we have the potential and the greater concern about human trafficking, both sex and labor trafficking. And we need to target in and focus in on those concerns and make sure that we are ensuring the safety for vulnerable individuals that may be working in those places. And that's exactly what our police department does. I always say that they're out there doing the hard work. They're in there, they're going to the spas. We've done some of the visits and some of the kind of undercover work with them, but they're the ones doing the hard work, and really my hat's off to the county police department and all the things that they're doing to make our community safer. And it's really a privilege to sit on the Human Trafficking Prevention Committee and to work with all of these wonderful individuals. And a special thank you to the County Council and to Councilmember Dawn Lukey for all of her leadership in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to read our proclamation and then I'll hand them out and we'll take a photograph. Whereas Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month calls on communities to focus on prevention by working together, addressing inequities, and strengthening local community-based solutions that minimize harm before it occurs. And whereas human trafficking affects an estimated 27.6 million people worldwide and occurs in every region, including Montgomery County, impacting individuals of all ages, backgrounds, and circumstances through forced labor and sexual exploitation. And whereas traffickers take advantage of vulnerability by using force, fraud, coercion, and manipulation to exploit victims, often targeting people facing poverty, discrimination, unstable housing, immigration concerns, or limited access to support and opportunity. And whereas human trafficking is closely connected to other forms of violence and hardship, including domestic and sexual abuse, child exploitation, and homelessness, and cannot be addressed in isolation. And whereas for survivors of trafficking, who often show extraordinary strength and resilience, healing and stability still require long-term practical support, such as safe housing, healthcare, legal assistance, education, employment opportunities, and trauma-informed care to heal and stabilize. And whereas Montgomery County recognizes and deeply values the dedication of advocates, service providers, healthcare professionals, educators, faith leaders, community organizations, and law enforcement who work every day to prevent trafficking, support survivors, and build safer, more nimble, and more responsive systems of care. Now therefore be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery, Maryland recognizes January as Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month and calls upon residents, partners, and institutions to honor the work of those on the front lines, support survivors, and continue working together toward a community where all people can live with safety, freedom, and dignity, presented on this 20th day of January 2026, signed by myself and Council President Natalie Fanny Gonzalez.
Thank you so much to everyone who came to the proclamation. And thank you, Councilmember Luque, for uplifting this important issue. We're going to continue with the agenda. We will move on to general business. Madam Clerk, would you please share today's announcements?
Good morning. The council will hold a public hearing on the Planning Board draft amendment to the master plan for historic preservation for the Rosebud House on February 24th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. here at the council office building. Those wishing to provide testimony must register in advance on the council's website or by calling 240-777-7803. More information can be found on the council website. The council will receive testimony on the FY27 capital budget and FY27 to 32 capital improvements program on February 9th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. and on February 10th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. here at the council office building. Those wishing to provide testimony must register in advance on the council website or by calling 240-777-7803. Registration will close on Friday, February 6th, 2026 at 12 o'clock p.m. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. There are no minutes for approval this week, so we will move on to our legislative session. We're going to start with introduction of bills. There are several bills for introduction today. The first one is one that I'm leading. Bill 1-26, Human Rights and Civil Liberties, County Minimum Wage, Actual Impact Analysis Amendments. I am the lead sponsor for this bill, and I thank my co-sponsors, Councilmember Stewart, Council Vice President Balcom, Councilmembers Luque, Katz, and Sales. A public hearing is scheduled for February 24th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. This legislation is common sense, and I hope it goes smooth, but that's what I said about my previous one. So this legislation eliminates an outdated reporting requirement with repeal Section 2770A of the Montgomery County Code. This section currently requires the Office of Legislative Oversight to provide an annual report on the county minimum wage and local economy. Why repeal this requirement, you may ask yourself. Well, Bill 2817, enacted in November 2017, a while back, increased Montgomery County's minimum wage to $15 per hour through a phased schedule ending in 2024 and required annual inflation adjustments thereafter. The bill also mandated that the Office of Legislative Oversight prepare an annual report to the council by January 31st, assessing the implementation of the minimum wage and its impact on the local economy. When the council enacted Bill 2817, the reporting requirement was intended to provide an early warning system during the phase-in of the 15 minimum wage. The warning system was intended to alert the county if there were adverse effects that resulted from the $15 minimum wage increase. Although which is the Office of Legislative Oversight, developed 17 economic indicators to monitor county performance and compare it with the 9 surrounding jurisdictions. That phased-in is now complete, and the report no longer serves its original purpose. Continuing this mandate imposes unnecessary workload without delivering actionable insights. In addition, the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis discontinued collecting county-level data for 4 indicators presented in previous year versions of this report, so current year comparisons to the 2017 base year are no longer possible. In summary, the report has outlived its usefulness, relies on data sources that are no longer reliable, and has become burdensome for all staff without providing meaningful value to county deliberations. What the bill does, remove Section 2770A from the code, eliminating the annual reporting mandate. No other changes to minimum wage law are proposed. This is a straightforward, good government measure that reduces unnecessary workload and focuses on resources where they're most needed. And with that, this bill is introduced. Did I forget anything?
Nothing's accurate.
I hope I did not, because that was a lot to read. Thank you. Happy to entertain you. Okay, so now moving on. The next bill for introduction is Bill 226, Taxation, Fuel Energy Tax, Green Bank Amendments. Lead sponsors are Council members Don Lutke, Fritzen, and Glass. Co-sponsors are Council Vice President Malcolm, Council members Stewart, Katz, and Evans. A public hearing is scheduled for February 24th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to ask the lead co-sponsors to make any comments, if so they wish. I'm going to start with Councilmember Lutke.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to my lead co-sponsors, Councilmember Friedson, who, along with Councilmember Hucker on the last council, spearheaded this idea that makes loads of sense, which is carving out a portion of our fuel energy tax revenue for the Green Bank. And I also want to thank Transportation and Environment Committee Chair Glass for his work in supporting the Green Bank throughout and ensuring it has the resources it needs to succeed. So this bill is about enabling the Green Bank to expand the great work it already does for renewable energy and energy efficiency, but also to allow that funding to support work for climate resiliency. When we say climate resiliency, we're talking about the physical upgrades needed to handle the severe impacts of climate change that are already here and that we're already facing. In our county and in our region, that predominantly so far means flooding from heavy rain events, especially after we've had no rain for an extended period of time, and then it rains all the rain in like 3 days, extreme heat, and extreme storms that threaten electricity and our connectivity. The Green Bank has developed a thorough and comprehensive resilience and adaptation implementation strategy for how it can help finance and fund resiliency projects. So some of those include replacing cooling equipment, adding battery backup, and installing flood mitigation with rain gardens, green roofs, and permeable pavement. And it's actually started financing some of these tools for multifamily buildings like faith institutions and through a partnership it has with Habitat for Humanity. What this bill does is allow the Green Bank to utilize the funds part of the annual fuel energy tax carve-out for climate resiliency purposes, which is going to expand the amount of the work the Green Bank can do with its partners. So I want to make clear we're not expanding the amount of, we're not expanding the quantity of the tax that goes in. We're simply allowing the existing mechanism for funding to cover resiliency projects. And this is vital as we continue to see the day in, day out effects of climate change in our region. And the other really great thing about these resiliency projects is that the Green Bank and their partners have already shown that they can combine the resiliency infrastructure piece with the renewable energy and energy efficiency pieces. So you're getting kind of a 2-for-1 in doing these projects. It helps save time, money, and works together to get us to where we need to be. For example, battery backup for power during a storm-related power outage generated by on-site solar. It's really a beautiful solution, and it's the way we're going to have to go on a broader basis pretty quickly to keep all of our needs met with these ongoing challenges. I look forward to discussing the possibilities here in more detail as we proceed with the bill, and I encourage everyone to check out the Green Bank's resilience and adaptation strategy. It's impressive what they've been able to put together, and it's informed by years of firsthand on-the-ground experience. Thank you to all of the co-sponsors for supporting this legislation. It's a common sense change that's going to yield real improvements. Thank you. Back to you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Fritzen.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Councilmember Lukey for your leadership in spearheading this. I'm very excited to be able to continue the progress that we've made with the Montgomery County Green Bank. When the last council took office, the Montgomery County Green Bank had $10 million in resources. If you're getting a loan from a bank that has $10 million in resources, you probably should take your money out. It wasn't enough to be able to meet the needs that we have to tackle climate and for them to be as creative as they need to be in order to leverage other opportunities for funding in the private sector and, at the time at least, at the federal level. Now, the Montgomery County Green Bank has $230 million in resources and growing with dedicated funding annually. That is a dramatic change, and it didn't require any additional new spending. It was not about increasing the amount of money that we are investing and spending, but getting creative about financing and leveraging the assets and resources that we have in the county. I am excited about additional ongoing conversations that we continue to have to explore creative financing opportunities, including with the Revenue Authority. I think there are tremendous opportunities that we have to expand and build upon the success of the Montgomery County Green Buildings Now Act. I want to give a couple shout outs to both Tom Hucker, who was noted earlier, who I co-authored the original bill with, but also to Roger Berliner, who was really the architect behind the Montgomery County Green Bank originally as one of the first, if not the first, local jurisdiction to have a bank like this using the Exelon-Pepco merger dollars to really make this a possibility. We are in this position today to expand because of those decisions and those efforts, and it's just important to note that tackling climate is about reducing carbon footprint. That's what the current resources do, but it's also about mitigating the impacts of decisions and actions that have already been taken, and that's what resilience is all about. So this will help accomplish both, and I just want to note, since we're not too far, we've had the capital budget presented to us. The operating budget is just less than 2 months away, that I hope that the county executive does not underfund this to the formula that we have set in legislation, and hope that we'll be able to continue the progress that we've made on this with this expanded authority.
Thank you. I want to make sure, Councilmember Glass. No? Okay. Councilmember Will Jowondo.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction, and big fan of the Green Bank, and want to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Excellent. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. So with that, this bill is introduced. And for the two bills that I just talked about, the public hearings are on February 24th. Okay. So next one is Bill 3-26, Administration Immigration Enforcement Guidance Required, the County Values Act. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Mink. Co-sponsors are Councilmember Stewart, Jowondo, Fritzen, Evans, Sales, and Glass. A public hearing will be scheduled for a later date. Councilmember Mink, yeah.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll start by noting that yesterday actually intending to call one of the imams here, I called a friend from my community organizing days who has the exact same name but a different spelling. And he said, "Oh, Kristen, I'm in Minneapolis." And he's from here. I guess it did not shock me when he said he was in Minneapolis. He went there to help, and he said, "I can't talk long, but just know that whatever you think it is, it's worse, and do anything you can to slow it down." And that was about the extent of the conversation that we had. So this bill, the County Values Act, It builds on the State Values Act that was passed last year, which established a judicial warrant requirement must be used at certain sensitive locations. And that was defined at the state level to just refer to a relatively small select group of places like schools, libraries, county-owned and operated healthcare facilities. This Values Act expands on that. So this imposes a judicial warrant requirement at all of our county facilities. And I appreciate the executive branch who is in agreement with that and is working to make sure that everybody is trained up on that. It's important to codify that that is where we stand and that that's what we are doing here in Montgomery County to make sure that the public knows and is aware. We've also built in some implementation guidelines into the bill itself to make sure that there is staff training happening, to make sure that folks who are on site have a phone number to be able to reach legal support in case there is need of a warrant review, and to have signage posted at the areas where you shift from being a space that is open to the general public to one that is not open to the general public. Then we need to have signage that is making that clear as well. Additionally, this bill bans immigration enforcement from county parking lots, garages, and vacant lots. We have seen that parking lots, garages, and vacant lots are spaces that ICE is using for immigration enforcement activities here in Montgomery County as well as elsewhere, for staging, for detainee transfers, and for other activities. And when we see that, it's important for us to say, any parking lot that we control here in the county, we will not tolerate that. We don't allow it. We don't consent to it. It also directs county staff to, if they see or hear of such an effort to use our county spaces in those ways, that they report that up the chain so that we can take appropriate actions as a county, such as ensuring that there is signage there, identifying those spaces as places where immigration enforcement is not permitted, as well as where appropriate and where feasible, putting up physical barriers to block them from entering those spaces. If there are parking areas that are not being used, they should not be used by us, used by our public. They should most certainly not be taken advantage of by ICE for being vacant so that they can do immigration enforcement activities. I have had some people ask how we will enforce the laws, how we will tell ICE to do anything. And of course, we have seen across the country, and my answer goes for this and for the Unmasked ICE Act led by my colleague Will Jawanda, which is coming up shortly. We have laws against murder, and they still shot Renee Good in the face. So we are still going to have laws against murder, and it's still important to have those lines in the sand. Yes, this is in many ways a lawless federal administration. We still, as a county, have a job to do, and we are going to do it. We're going to use our county laws to get all our ducks in a row, to ensure we are doing everything possible to protect our residents and be prepared for whatever is coming next, and to draw those lines in the sand and make crystal clear who we are, who we stand with, and what we stand against. So with this one, we're saying we're not going to allow ICE, we're not going to consent to ICE to using any space that we can legally keep them out of, and wherever possible, we're going to physically keep them out of there as well. So thank you to the many, many organizations and labor unions who have signed on to support both this bill and the Unmasked ICE Act. Thank you to my colleagues who have already co-sponsored, and thank you very much to Ms. McCartney Green for all your work on this, to my staff, and to the executive branch and the county attorney's office. I yield.
Thank you. Councilmember Balcom.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to be added to the bill.
Thank you. And I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. Does the council staff have additional comments?
No comments.
All right. Thank you so much. This bill has been introduced. Next one is Bill 4-26, Buildings, Task Force on Data Centers, established. The lead sponsor, Councilmember Glass. A public hearing is scheduled for February 24th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. There are a lot of questions residents have about data centers here in Montgomery County. We have seen what happens when they go unregulated in Northern Virginia. Our neighboring jurisdictions To the north, Frederick County, and to the east, Prince George's County have undertaken their own processes for their residents and their stakeholders to determine if and how they want to manage data centers. This legislation establishes a 15-member task force for Montgomery County residents and stakeholders to make those same determinations. Each jurisdiction in our region have taken different approaches, and I think it is important for us to learn and reflect from those different approaches with our residents and stakeholders. The 15 members, as introduced, represent our civic and environmental community, our business and government community, and also our utilities, an incredibly important component of this conversation because we know that data centers affect energy use, infrastructure, and the environment. I will get ahead of the ZTA that will be introduced later and express my appreciation to my colleagues for taking that conversation on in a different way. But what I would hope is that we in Montgomery County engage in this conversation with the community about how we want to move forward, and that is what this legislation does. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. This bill is introduced. Moving on to Bill 5-26 for introduction. Police mask or facial coverings prohibited. They Unmask ICE Act. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Yawando. Co-sponsors are Councilmembers Mink, Stewart, Evans, and Sales. A public hearing will be scheduled for a later date. Councilmember Will Yawando.
Thank you, Madam President. I am proud to stand or sit here today, but stand in my heart with Councilmember Mink and other colleagues to introduce these two very important bills that will help protect our community at a critical time in our history. Councilmember Mink described in detail the County Values Act, and I'm very appreciative to her and to the other co-sponsors because it will make clear that we don't want ICE operating in our public spaces. We're standing up for our residents. We are also introducing today the Unmask ICE Act, which would prohibit any law enforcement officer, federal, state, or local, from wearing a mask while interacting with the public in Montgomery County. There are common sense exceptions for medical masks, squad operations, and emergency situations. And we look forward to working with our law enforcement, who I want to say is doing the right thing in this area, but we need to make sure that it's the law. Masks should never be worn to intimidate residents and to avoid accountability. My youngest son turned 7 over the weekend, and we had a birthday party. He was born just a few weeks after I took office here. And even he knows when you hide your face, you're ashamed of what you're doing. It's not normal. It's not democratic. And not only that, it's counterproductive to safety. Safety requires trust, and trust requires transparency. So by legislating that masks cannot be used in the enforcement of laws, it's not radical, it's common sense. And it used to be ICE policy. ICE did its job for decades without masks. A federal judge in California, in taking up a case challenging the county of LA, who passed a similar law, and the state of California, who passed a similar law, asked, quote, "Why can't you perform your duties without a mask?" ICE did it until 2025, did they not? End quote. We've all seen the horrible videos of how ICE is terrorizing Americans across our country, including here in Montgomery County. And later today we'll have a press conference and we'll hear directly from residents about their experiences with ICE. We need to act now and do what we can to build in safeguards for our residents, including by helping them recognize and distinguish ICE from our own law enforcement. This is one of the moments in history, I believe, when we will ask ourselves, and looking back, did we do our part? Did we do all we could to stand up for our residents? Throughout history, masks have been used in America to shield the wearer from accountability. They've been used for terror, impunity, and anonymity from violence. We saw it in the time from the Ku Klux Klan, and we're seeing it now before our eyes in real time. I'm grateful to all of our residents who are rejecting what's happening and standing up for what is right and asking us to do the same. As we heard last week in testimony for the Trust Act, residents are asking us to do more, to do all we can. And on the day after we've celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, I think there's no better time to show that we're listening. Dr. King once said, "The law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless." And these policies are heartless. This federal administration is heartless. I want to thank the coalition that has quickly come together around these two bills, CASA, MCEA, SEIU 500, the Montgomery County Immigrant Rights Collective, Action in Montgomery, the Latino Democratic Club, the Women's Democratic Club, the Jewish Collective, the Muslim Voices Coalition, the MoCo Pride Center, and many, many, many others, including faith communities, to support these bills. Montgomery County is coming together to protect our neighbors, and I'm grateful that we're part of this community. Together, we'll get through this. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank the sponsor for introducing this legislation. As my colleagues know, I spoke with council attorneys about drafting this legislation last year, and I chose not to move forward with it because there were conversations about what the county can and can't do with regard to federal law enforcement and what our jurisdiction might be. But I would like to be a co-sponsor of this legislation today because a lot has changed since last summer. Too many of our neighbors are being disappeared. People are living in fear. Donald Trump has ordered ICE to act without impunity. And law-abiding Americans like Renee Good are being killed by ICE officers in their neighborhoods. And residents do want to know that we are doing everything we can to protect our community. And while this legislation is being introduced today, similar legislation is being taken up just today as well in Annapolis by the General Assembly. And I want them to know that we stand with them in solidarity and with our neighbors because we have to do everything we can to protect our neighbors. So thank you.
Thank you. This bill is introduced. Is there anything else from council staff? No comments. All right. Thank you so much. The way I like it. No, I'm playing. Agenda item 2 is the call of bills for final reading. We have Bill 24-25, Transportation Demand Management Repeal. The Transportation Environment Committee recommends enactment with amendments. Chair Glass, could you please share the committee's recommendations?
Thank you, Madam President. The T&E Committee met twice in 2025 and voted out Bill 2425, Transportation Demand Management Repeal, unanimously, 3-0. Transportation demand management is a throwback dating back to the creation of the Silver Spring Transportation Management District in the 1980s when the county wanted to determine what the traffic mitigation plans were for the growing community. And then in 2006, the council created the Transportation Management District fees and required employers to have plans for their new buildings. And as we've continued to grow, so has the program. But during that time, a lot has also changed, like the pandemic, like increased public transportation and walkability and smart growth. And so I want to extend my appreciation to Councilmember Balcom for taking the lead on this. It was introduced as a full committee, but she did yeoman's work. And with that, I will turn it over to Councilmember Balcom to fill us in on more.
So thank you. I want to thank Chair Glass and Councilmember Stewart for co-sponsoring this bill. It was a very complex process, and I appreciate your thoughts and persistence in working through the many issues that came up. I also want to thank Ms. McCartney Green for her expert guidance and Craig Wilson on my staff who went through this every step of the way. Director Conklin and his team, Deputy Director Peckett and Ms. Brecker are here today, and also David Ansbacher from Planning. We've been working on this for a long time. When the bill was introduced, I mentioned that Bill 2425 was the perfect number because it had taken most of 2024 and 2025 to get through the bill. I'm glad we're working on it today because I don't think we can change the name to 24, 25, 26. So I'd like to move this along. So as legislators, the most significant thing we do is to pass laws, but we also have the responsibility to determine when laws are no longer working or serving the community and should be amended or, in this case, repealed. The packet does a great job of tracking the history of the law and the work sessions that we've had, so I'll be brief. The focus of the Transportation Demand Management Program is to increase non-auto driver mode share in specific areas in the county. Aspects of the law have been around since the 80s with several amendments throughout the years. And the law has become overly complicated. The survey of employee commuting patterns has not been as reliable as anticipated. And as Chair Glass mentioned, commuting patterns have changed significantly. So where we are today, we've worked through this longstanding law, and there are lots of tentacles throughout in this program, throughout our code. And so I just want to say that the important things that we want to touch on is that transportation demand management, the practice, does not go away with this repeal. The work that's done with the employers to change commuting patterns of employees is very important work and will continue. But there were several issues that we worked through in committee that is also in your packet that's important. We clarified what's to be done with the existing traffic mitigation plans. Those are contractual agreements between developers and planning and DOT. Those don't go away. We clarified the notice to developers, created a savings clause to clarify that the intent for the planning board continues to have the authority to impose TDMs, and we also changed the effective date of the bill. There was one outstanding item that I do want to address, is that MCDOT is an integral party to these agreements, and they have requested that their role in these agreements be codified. I am proposing an amendment which is outlined on page 2 that explicitly states DOT's role in these agreements. If I could ask Ms. McCartney-Green to kind of walk through that amendment and why it's needed.
Thank you, Councilmember Bauckham, and good morning. Just to specify, as you mentioned, on page 2 of the staff report is an amendment that seeks to amend Section 255 of the code. Section 255 of the code really sets forth the duties and responsibilities for the Department of Transportation. What's already existing is that DOT already was permitted or allowed under the code to manage programs, but what this would do is not only the programs, but any approval, management, or amendment of any new or existing traffic mitigation agreements or transportation demand management plans. In addition to that, as we mentioned, planning still has the authority under the zoning ordinance to also require TDM initiatives, and so that would give the opportunity for cross collaborations between the department and planning to manage those, give input, and have staff resources, because DOT has been managing this for a while, so they have the expertise there to be able to have that cross coordination. So really, this is broadening the scope of DOT's responsibilities concerning TDM plans and traffic mitigation agreements.
Okay, with that, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the bill as amended by the T&E committee.
A motion was placed by Council Vice President Bauckham, second by Councilmember Glass. Let's have some discussions. We're going to start with Councilmember Stewart.
Great, thank you. I'm going to support the amendment, and I just want to take this moment to say thank you to Vice President Bauckham. As she said, this took a great deal of time. She has thanked the many people who have been responsible and helped move this forward, but I think she needs particular thanks from this entire body and our county government because this was a thorny issue. When we all agree on a goal, but then pass laws or regulations and we realize, gee, this isn't meeting the goal we had established, it's really hard to say, let's step back, let's look at this again, and really untangle this ball of yarn that we had. And she took the time to do that. And I just want to say thank you so much for all of those efforts and the efforts of your team. We still believe in the goals of what we set out to do with this, and I know on the Transportation and Environment Committee, we'll continue to work towards that and figure out how do we replace this effort, but I just wanted to really thank the Vice President for her role and all she's done on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lawrence Sales.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to my colleague, Vice President Balcom, for introducing the amendment. I am also supporting this law, not because we are trying to retreat on our responsibilities to ensure that we are making the appropriate movement towards evaluating these strategies to ensure better development review, infrastructure investment, and planning coordination between MDOT and our planning department, but to ensure that there's a more tailored approach to this process and recognizing that this creates a more effective solution instead of continuing down an uncertain path. And so most of us don't want to get into the weeds, but I appreciate the time that you took and the explanations in the packet as well. And so I support and second.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the table for this amendment in a second. Those in favor, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. I need a motion. Is there a motion to approve Expedited Bill 2725 as amended?
So moved.
Moved by Council Vice President Balcom, second by Councilmember Stewart. This is actually a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass?
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friesen?
Yes.
Councilmember Friesen votes yes. Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans votes yes. Councilmember Jawando? Yes. Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Fanning Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fanning Gonzalez votes yes.
This bill is approved, and thank you so much for all your work. Standing ovation for her. All right. That's what you get. All right. Moving on. So the next item on the agenda is item 3. The council will now sit as a district council. The first item for the district council's consideration is the introduction zoning text amendment 2601, commercial uses data center. Lead sponsors, Council President Natalie Fanning Gonzalez, Council Vice President Marilyn Balcom, and Council Member Lorian Sales. A public hearing is scheduled for February 24th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to say, I'm sure my colleagues also have some comments to make. I'm going to start by saying that this zoning text amendment was developed after coordinating and analyzing jurisdictions across the Washington, D.C. region that have data centers. It also analyzed the current data center that is being built in Dickerson. This is already happening. This ZTA has been put together with input from an array of people, and I'm going to let Council Vice President Balcom talk more about that. It did not come out of the blue. It took months of work, and it was done to ensure that Montgomery County is set up in the right place to ensure that if we have more companies coming in, we're already protected. It creates safeguards in our community, and it actually says that these data centers need to be in industrial areas. I'm not going to go over the ZTA right now, but I look forward to the public hearing and community conversations on it. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Council Vice President Marilyn Balcom.
Thank you. And I do want to stress that this is the start of the conversation. We work closely with the County Executive's Office, who was doing significant work in looking at other jurisdictions, lessons learned, and to try to look at the best way to go forward with data centers in the county. So for some people, this is a new idea or this is a new topic. In my district, we have been working on data centers for as long as I've been here. I inherited the data center in Dickerson as it was moving forward. So we have had significant conversations with the Dickerson community and surrounding communities, and we have every intention of engaging the entire community, the entire Montgomery County in this discussion as we move forward. The county executive's already working towards having a town hall listening session with the community. We will be joining him on that, and we have a series of other listening tours for the community. So we have every intention of engaging. This is the start of the conversation, but as President Fanny Gonzalez mentioned, we need to make sure that that data centers are implemented in very restricted areas. They should be conditional use only, in industrial areas only, and that's what we are starting out with. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Council President and Vice President. I am glad that we are introducing this bill following the fall conference for MACO, where data centers was a big part of the conversation. I remember grabbing the county executive and talking with him about what are we going to do in the county to ensure clear guidelines and community engagement for the data centers that are definitely coming to our communities. We're watching closely what's happening in Prince George's County and the lessons learned in neighboring jurisdictions in Virginia. And so, as my colleagues have mentioned, this bill is only a first step. We definitely want to ensure that data centers are only placed in industrial zones away from residential communities, and ensuring that we take the time to hear from communities before this legislation is finalized. So I encourage you to sign up and let your voices be heard, and be on the lookout for when we will be in the community hearing from residents on the ground. Thank you.
Beautiful. The ZTA is introduced. Moving on is introduction of a resolution to approve additions to the Office of Zoning and Administrative Hearings comprehensive fee schedule. A public hearing and action are scheduled for February 3rd, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. Are there any comments from county staff on this item?
Nothing to add.
Thank you so much. Moving on, the final item for the District Council's consideration is a briefing on the Planning Board draft of the Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan. A public hearing is scheduled for tomorrow, January 21st, 2026 at 7 p.m. at Rocky Hill Middle School, and the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee is scheduled to discuss the plan on February the 2nd. The County Council had a tour of the area last week, and I want to thank Council staff and the Planning Board staff for organizing the event. With that, I'm going to pass the mic to our Council staff so they can take it from us. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, everyone. I'm here with the Planning Board staff. They're going to give you a briefing on the Clarksburg plan. We had several council members on the tour. We also had staff from every council member office that joined us on the tour, which was very interesting and enlightening. And what you'll get today is a presentation, so a visual briefing on what the elements of the plan are and what the Planning Board recommendations are. This is so that when you get to the public hearing tomorrow night, you have context for the testimony that you'll hear. With that, I'll turn it over to planning.
I'll start out. Good morning, Madam President and members of the council. For the record, I'm Artie Harris, Chair of the Montgomery County Planning Board. Last month, the Planning Board approved the Planning Board draft of the Clarksburg Gateway Master Sector Plan and transmitted it to the Montgomery County Council for its public review process. We also gave you a tour of the plan area last week. This plan focuses on the undeveloped areas of Clarksburg located east of I-270 and west of Frederick Road, areas that have seen little change over the past 30 years and now present significant opportunities for growth. The Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan offers a chance to reimagine an area with substantial untapped potential. Its recommendations advance a forward-looking vision that promotes economic vitality, environmental stewardship, and inclusive growth. This plan is designed to ensure that Clarksburg's future development reflects the aspirations of its residents and business community while strengthening its role in the county's long-term success. The planning team will walk through the recommendations which respond to decades of limited development east of I-270. These propose strategic zoning updates, measures to support housing affordability, improvements to transportation infrastructure, and the preservation of key natural and historic resources, all aimed at fostering a thriving, connected community. We are proud to present this plan, which is also our first to incorporate the state's new master plan guidance and its 8 planning principles. I want to acknowledge and thank the planning staff for their extensive outreach efforts. This plan is firmly grounded in community input. Thank you to the residents, property owners, and stakeholders who engaged in the process. Thank you to the council for the opportunity to brief you today. We look forward to continuing to work with you and addressing any questions or comments you may have. I'll now turn it over to the planning department team, starting with Director Sartori, to provide an overview of the plan to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Jason Sartori, Planning Director. Madam President, members of the County Council, thank you for providing us with the opportunity this morning to brief you on this important plan. The Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan establishes a new vision for part of Clarksburg that hasn't been master planned since 1994. Now, 1994 feels like yesterday to me in some ways, but I realize now that that's 32 years ago. I was much younger then. As was this plan. So this plan envisions a Clarksburg that is more complete, more connected, and more sustainable. And we look forward to continued conversations on this plan with the PHP committee, with the district council member and council vice president Marilyn Balcom, and the entire council when it gets to you. So with that, I'm just going to pass it off to the team.
Hello, good morning. Clark Larson. I'm the lead planner for the master plan, member of the Up County Division. The Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan encompasses about 970 acres in northern Montgomery County near the crossroads of Interstate 270 and Clarksburg Road, or Maryland State Route 121. The sector plan contains the text, supporting maps and figures, and appendices for a comprehensive amendment to a portion of the approved and adopted 1994 Clarksburg Master Plan and Hyattstown Special Study Area. It's all one plan. And a portion of the 2014 10 Mile Creek Area Limited Amendment. It would also amend Thrive Montgomery 2050, the Master Plan for Historic Preservation, the Master Plan for Highways and Transitways, the Bicycle Master Plan, Corridor Forward, the I-270 Transit Plan, and the Pedestrian Master Plan. The Planning Department began work on the sector plan update with the Planning Board's approval of a scope of work in June 2023. I'll cover more about our community engagement efforts shortly, only to say now that the years-long participation and feedback by the Clarksburg community greatly informed the preparation of plan recommendations and a working draft that was subsequently presented to the Planning Board in July of 2025. Following a Planning Board public hearing in September 2025, and acceptance of written testimony through August and September, the board held 6 work sessions from September through December 2025 to consider testimony received. The board approved the draft Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan on December 4th, 2025, and transmitted it to you for your public review process. As described by Chair Harris, the Planning Board draft establishes a vision for new, complete, connected, and sustainable development in this portion of Clarksburg, with recommendations to shape future land use development and transportation networks, provide natural recreational opportunities, natural and recreational opportunities, both, for area residents, advance the county's housing and economic goals, and preserve and protect the natural environment and historic resources. As you can see in the map in the upper right of the slide, a study area that approximated the plan area, which is dashed in black, plan area in black, study area in yellow, as a single census tract, was used for much of the demographic analysis of the plan update. In 2023, there were nearly 4,000 residents living in the study area among its 1,288 housing units. Most moved into the area since the year 2000, as new residential neighborhoods were established as well in the greater Clarksburg community. Until at least the year 2000, the study area population was majority non-Hispanic white in racial identity. However, racial and ethnic diversity increased dramatically since 2000. The combined percentage of people of color was about 76% in 2020, compared to 59% across the county at that time. Today, the study area also has a larger percentage of the population identifying as Asian, Pacific Islander, or Black than does the county as a whole. Underlying the increase in the racial diversity is a notable foreign-born population. About 44% of study area residents were born in another country, higher than the rate of the county's foreign-born population of 32%. The median household income in the study area was about $163,000 as of 2023, or 26% above the county's median income of about $129,000. Income is highly correlated with educational attainment. Clarksburg residents within the study area as of 2023 had a solid concentration of bachelor's degrees at about 42%, higher than the county population as a whole, 27%. The majority of study area's residents hold an occupation in management, business, science, and the arts at about 57%, similar to the majority of Montgomery County's employed residents as well. Housing cost burden is defined as spending more than 30% of household income on housing costs. Based on the U.S. Census Bureau's 5-year American Community Survey estimate for 2023, about 30% of owner-occupied households with a mortgage were cost-burdened in the study area. That's higher than the county's 23% of such households. 37% of renter-occupied households in the study area were cost-burdened. However, this estimate is somewhat less reliable because renters make up a very small percentage of the study area households. Nearly 43% of county renters were cost-burdened in 2023. Most of the housing units in the plan area itself are townhomes, about 74%, comprising a larger share of this housing type than the county as a whole at only about 18%. There are no multifamily rental units in the plan area currently, although one is being planned right now on Shawnee Lane. And the surrounding vicinity around the plan area has a much larger share of single-family detached development and housing than the plan area itself. The average work commute time for residents in the study area as of 2023 was about 42 minutes, compared to county residents with an average work commute time of only 34 minutes. The majority of study area residents commuted by car, about 81%, and 14% work from home. Work trips by public transportation and other modes of transportation by study area residents were negligible, contrasting with the county's greater use of non-automobile modes of transportation of about 15%. So that's all the context in which we came to understand the plan area as we developed the draft plan. Over the course of the plan update process, the planning team conducted community outreach and engagement to inform and influence the preparation of the draft plan. In addition to individual meetings with stakeholders, property owners, public agency staff, and neighborhood and community groups, the planning team organized a series of community outreach activities as part of its engagement efforts. Door-to-door canvassing was completed in the summer of 2023, and an online survey opened at the July 26, 2023 community kickoff meeting and ran through December of that year, collectively generating over 1,000 individual comments and reactions. 4 topical listening sessions were held in Clarksburg throughout October 2023, and interactive visioning workshops in May and June of 2024 built upon earlier feedback received to dive into possible plan recommendations and scenarios with the community. After the planning team considered all comments received, we returned to the community with a set of emerging ideas in January of 2025 and to the planning board in March of that year. Comments received at these meetings allowed the planning team to develop a refined set of preliminary recommendations that were presented to the planning board in June 2025. In addition to seeking community feedback to guide the sector plan update, especially with the expertise of everyday canvassing, the planning team retained 3 consultants to support technical aspects of the plan. The architecture firm Fu Wilmers Design was retained to prepare conceptual site planning and architectural design studies to envision possible adaptive reuse and development scenarios for the former CompStat Laboratories building and property. An economic consultant, HR&A Advisors, conducted financial feasibility analysis on development scenarios conceived by Fu Wilmers to understand how new development could potentially financially support adaptive reuse of the former CompStat Laboratories building. I'll say more on how these efforts inform the draft plan's recommendations shortly. The planning team also conducted regional travel modeling, as is typical, to inform and assess potential plan scenarios for future transportation networks and development alternatives. With these modeling results, the planning department, as well as the team, also retained a transportation consultant, VHB, to conduct intersection level traffic analysis on a selection of intersections in and around the plan area. Findings from both analyses informed our transportation recommendations for an optimized roadway connections and designs. Additionally, our approach to the sector plan update and the preparation of plan recommendations was informed by existing county-wide and functional plans and policies, many of which are shown here on the screen, including Thrive Montgomery 2050, the county's general plan, Corridor Forward, the I-270 transit plan, the county's racial equity and social justice law, and the Climate Action Plan, as well as the latest Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan. The sector plan is an opportunity to apply countywide plans and policies over the life of the 20 years or so planning horizon, but at a finer grain level in Clarksburg. The sector plan area is situated at the northernmost extent of the county's corridor-focused growth area along I-270, as you can see here on the map on the left, with a black arrow pointing to the sector plan area. The plan boundary encompasses most of the 1994 plan's transit corridor district, west of Frederick Road, or Maryland 355. Major properties in the plan area include the Gateway 270 Office Park, the former CompStat Laboratories property, and the Linthicum Family Farmhouse. 3 schools, 3 parks, and several residential neighborhoods are also situated within the plan area. The Planning Board draft follows a typical structure for county master plans with an introduction, vision, and framework chapters setting the plan's context and update process, and the overall vision, framework, and guiding principles for the plan. Plan-wide recommendations are organized by topical chapter, followed by more detailed geographical recommendations for neighborhoods of 1 or more properties with shared planning approaches and characteristics. Finally, an implementation chapter lays out the strategies and capital improvements needed to achieve the plan's goals and recommendations. Pardon me. The draft plan's vision seeks to balance future development with the preservation of natural and historic resources that will contribute to a more complete, connected, and sustainable Clarksburg. Key strategies to achieve the plan's vision include connecting neighborhoods by new streets, paths, and trails, preserving and enhancing natural features and stream conditions, especially as future development occurs, expanding and enhancing parks and recreational amenities, preserving historic community assets and celebrating the people they represent, and supporting new compact mixed-use development in the heart of Clarksburg. The plan's concept framework plan expresses the overall vision for the physical elements of the sector plan as they combine to achieve a cohesive community. The framework identifies key elements of the existing community landscape, overlaid by aspirational elements to be realized through implementation of the sector plan's policies and recommendations. The framework is intended to guide the evolution of the plan area toward a compact and connected community that is capable of attracting retail and employment uses, providing a range of much-needed housing opportunities, and supporting the services, amenities, and infrastructure contemplated by the plan. Key recommendations of the land use chapter include the adoption of zoning recommendations, shown in the next slide. The plan's zoning recommendations seek to allow for greater flexibility in the establishment of a mix of commercial, residential, and recreational uses to serve immediate and surrounding communities. The draft plan also recommends prioritizing certain public benefits for projects seeking approval under the optional method of development in commercial residential zones. These priorities are consistent with the latest incentive zoning updates that the Council adopted last year. The goals of the draft plan's recommended zones are to, number one, add flexibility for future land uses and development standards for certain properties, and introduce residential development as an allowable use along the planned Observation Drive corridor, where it's currently limited or not allowed by existing zoning. This is seen in the change from some EOF zones or employment office zones to commercial residential zones. Number two, to allow modest increases in allowable residential density for properties adjacent to established neighborhoods of similar character, as evidenced by some of the changes from R200 to CRT, especially along Frederick Road. And number three, to replace planned development or PD zones and fulfilled transferable development rights or TDR overlay zones with corresponding conventional zones that continue current allowable density and development character. Key transportation recommendations include the completion of Observation Drive, albeit along a different alignment than is planned today by the 1994 plan, and the completion of Little Seneca Parkway across I-270, establishing the Clarksburg Milestone Corridor Connector enhanced bus service on dedicated transit lanes along the planned Observation Drive alignment, exploring safety interventions and operational improvements at key intersections throughout the plan area, and completing a network of separated bikeways and local trail connections throughout the plan area as well. This map illustrates the recommended Clarksburg Milestone Corridor Connector in the dashed pink line. Mine's black and white, but I think you can see the dashed pink line there on the screen. A continuation of the 2022 Corridor Forward Plan to re-envision portions of the previous Corridor Cities Transitway as instead a network of locally serving enhanced bus lines. Integration with the planned Maryland 355 North BRT service and local bus routes, as well as enhanced bus station locations and park and ride facilities, is the subject of several public transit recommendations. The draft plan recommends a different strategy for the long-planned Observation Drive extended than the 1994 plan, as I previously mentioned, shifting it away from the Cool Brook Stream Valley and realigning it to connect with Gateway Center Drive. The plan also recommends changes to certain street designs, a combination of town center boulevards and town center streets to complement the character of development that is envisioned along the future Observation Drive corridor. Completion of Little Seneca Parkway across the former CompSat Laboratories property and I-270 with support for a possible highway interchange is another key element of the plan's street network recommendations. Plan recommendations also seek to complete a network of low-stress pathways, including sidewalks, separated bikeways, and trails that foster connectivity between communities and provide safe and comfortable access to neighborhoods, transit, schools, parks, and essential amenities for users of all ages and abilities. Some notable examples, as seen on this map on the slide, are proposed trails or side path crossings of I-270, trail connections through existing and future residential neighborhoods, and overall complete streets treatments for any new roadway that accommodates all users in a safe and efficient manner. The plan in general recommends zoning changes and policies that we believe will facilitate additional housing in the county to help achieve our county and regional housing goals. Key housing recommendations include establishing a minimum expectation for 15% of a proposed development's total housing units designated as moderately priced dwelling units, or MPDUs. Like recent master plans, this plan prioritizes the provision of a higher level of MPDUs than 15% and the inclusion of family-sized housing units to achieve the public benefits necessary for optional method of development housing projects. Finally, plan recommendations seek to ensure that new housing developments increase the quality and quantity of housing units accessible to people experiencing homelessness, people with disabilities, and older adults, who are also people. Sorry, I didn't want to imply they're not people as well. The primary organizing elements of neighborhoods are its streets, blocks, open spaces, and buildings. Community design recommendations are included as a set of design intentions that apply to future development in the sector plan area, with some elements identified based on their location or relationship to community assets and destinations. Key design recommendations include establishing an interconnected hierarchy of streets and alleys with frequent intersections and smaller blocks, accommodating on-street parking where feasible, establishing publicly accessible, shaded open spaces as a central feature of new development, placing new buildings close to the street with parking and services located behind, to the sides of, or lined by buildings, and avoiding front-loaded driveways or garages for new residential developments except where site constraints exist. The draft plan establishes 3 environmental goals as organizing principles for its environmental recommendations: to protect the Little Seneca Creek watershed's tributaries and follow the goals of the Clarksburg Special Protection Area, I always stumble on that one, and 10 Mile Creek Special Protection Area to minimize the impacts of development on stream quality, natural resources, and wildlife. Number 2, preserve and expand forest stands on non-forestry canopy and other natural areas on public and private lands. And 3, to implement sustainable site and building design elements into new developments to reduce carbon emissions and improve climate resiliency through heat mitigation and smart building design. Some of the key environmental recommendations to achieve these goals are seen here on the slide, include locating new streets, buildings, and impervious surfaces away from sensitive environmental areas, recommending the retention of existing streets and forest stands in the plan area, and planting new shade trees as landscapes among new development where practicable, providing a minimum of 35% green cover of a new development's total development area, and achieving a minimum 50% tree canopy coverage on surface parking lots. Park recommendations seek to achieve 3 primary goals. 1, to provide an integrated system of parks, open spaces, and recreational amenities throughout the plan area to best serve the Clarksburg community. Improve connectivity and access to existing parks and recreational facilities. And 3, to expand parkland and protected natural areas within the plan area to effectively manage critical natural resources and biodiversity. Black Hill Regional Park is a major destination just outside the plan area. Plan recommendations focus on improving access to this park by all modes of transportation. This includes a recommendation for a new bus stop at the entrance off of West Old Baltimore Road, safer pedestrian and bicycle crossings, and the creation of a paved trail into the park from the main entrance. The draft plan also recommends 2 new parks in the plan area. The first is Coolbrook Stream Valley Park, shown in the middle of this map with the striped green area. This parkland would conserve the Coolbrook Stream and as tributary of Little Seneca, and is also recommended as a possible private conservation area if it doesn't become parkland. The other proposed new park is Constellation Park, which is recommended as either a single public park or as a network of connected public parks with distinct uses that achieve the goals described in the plan. The scale, form, location, and configuration of Constellation Park will be determined by the Planning Board during the development review process, but guided by the indications laid out in the draft plan. Finally, the Department of Recreation identifies the Clarksburg area as the highest priority area for a new regional recreation and aquatic center. This plan strongly supports the development of a recreation center in or near the plan area, though a specific location is not identified in the plan. As mentioned in the transportation section, the central recommendation of this plan is to complete connections for Observation Drive and Little Seneca Parkway. Both roads will need to responsibly cross Stream Valley Parkland by bridge, and detailed wetland delineation will be required to determine the exact specifications for each bridge. Both of those roads, along with West Old Baltimore Road, will include recommended pedestrian and bicycle facilities, in addition to vehicles that will improve park access. Another important consideration is the creation of wildlife crossings with any new bridge or roadway construction. This map shows recommended locations for wildlife crossings. At stream valleys, wildlife would pass under the bridges, where at Little Seneca Parkway is recommended to cross I-270, wildlife should be accommodated within the overpass itself. While with any changes to West of Baltimore or I-270, wider space for wildlife, in addition to pedestrians and bicyclists, should be accommodated under I-270. During our existing conditions analysis, staff identified the former Rocky Hill community, a historic African-American community that originated in the 1870s and 1880s, for evaluation as a significant cultural resource. Rocky Hill was anchored by a church and one-room school on Frederick Road near present-day Rocky Hill Middle School and Clarksburg High School. Historic preservation staff evaluated 2 resources within this community: the Community of Faith United Methodist Church and Cemetery site, marked with the red pin on the left map, and the Clarksburg Heights District, outlined in yellow. The Community of Faith United Methodist Church, depicted in the center image, is a 1925 Gothic Revival brick church that functioned as a religious and social center. Meanwhile, the Clarksburg Heights District, shown on the right, represents a small mid-20th century subdivision of 6 houses planned, built, and owned by African Americans. Based on our evaluation, staff determined that both the site and district satisfy 3 designation criteria as listed in the Montgomery County Code. At its public hearing and work sessions on January 8th, the Historic Preservation Commission concurred with the draft plan's recommendation to list these resources in the Locational Atlas and Index of Historic Sites and the Master Plan for Historic Preservation. As part of this plan update, staff evaluated the former CompStat Laboratories building for listing in the Master Plan for Historic Preservation, recognizing its long administrative history around the unresolved question of its preservation since 2004. The Planning Board approved the evaluation of CompStat Laboratories as part of the sector plan to resolve this issue. In 2005, the Historic Preservation Commission found that CompStat Laboratories satisfied 6 designation criteria as outlined in the county code, and staff concurs with that finding. As mentioned previously, to explore viable options for the site, the Planning Department engaged Fu Wilmer's design consultants to develop adaptive reuse scenarios and site development plans for the property. Staff then contracted HR&A Advisors, a real estate and economic development consultant, to examine the economic feasibility of various options. Based on their analysis, the planning team informed the Planning Board and the community that designation of the property in the Master Plan for Historic Preservation would not be recommended, as there is no economically feasible path forward for the adaptive reuse of the property in the near term, while meeting the department's long-term priorities for the sector plan. After reviewing staff materials, considering public testimony, and receiving guidance from the Historic Preservation Commission, the Planning Board voted to recommend to the County Council that the CompStat Laboratories building should not be listed in the Master Plan for Historic Preservation. As part of the plan's recommendation to not list CompStat Laboratories, staff worked with the property owner to explore potential mitigation strategies for the loss of this significant resource. The draft plan's recommendations state that mitigation should be required commensurate to the loss of the historic resource if the former CompStat Laboratories building is proposed for full or partial demolition. Identified appropriate mitigation includes establishing a historic preservation grant fund, conducting documentation of the building, developing interpretation materials to highlight the history of the complex and its occupants, and pursuing public art and placemaking opportunities to honor the building's architectural and technological legacy. As new development occurs and people moved into and out of existing neighborhoods, the plan anticipates potential impacts to roads, schools, parks, public services, and utilities to ensure they are adequate and responsive to demands. Community facilities recommendations focus not only on immediate needs, such as potential lighting of school tennis courts for evening use by students and the community, but also long-term needs to ensure that new water and sewer connections are located in cost-efficient and low-impact locations, and that other public utilities are undergrounded where feasible to increase operational resiliency and protect community landscapes. The following recommendations apply to development and public improvements in one of 4 neighborhoods defined by their unique character, building scale and density, and development timescale. These recommendations are in addition to the plan-wide recommendations that apply across the plan area. The sector plan supports a continuation of employment-oriented uses, including light industrial, research and development, and commercial uses in the Gateway Center neighborhood. Consistent with Thrive Montgomery 2050, however, this plan also supports future development or redevelopment in this neighborhood to develop in a compact, mixed-use format with housing, retail amenities, parks, and public spaces and transit, ensuring that they are integrated into the surrounding communities in a context-sensitive manner. The sector plan anticipates a range of development types on the former CompStat Laboratories property with a portion of the property occupied by residential uses and a portion occupied by CompStat mixed. I'm starting to lose my eyesight here, but I'm almost there. Thanks for your patience. and a portion occupied by a compact mixed-use activity center with a variety of residential, commercial, retail, and recreational uses. The location and configuration of these development types is flexible, yet the plan encourages an activity center to be established in proximity to a planned enhanced bus transit station along Observation Drive Extended. The draft plan also supports the establishment of life sciences, biotech, and other employment-oriented uses, either as a distinct campus or integrated with surrounding mixed-use development. The sector plan anticipates primarily residential development in the Linthicum neighborhood with a mix of housing types and densities and an opportunity for neighborhood-scale commercial development. Coordination of future development blocks and street connections is a recommendation of both this and the ComSat neighborhood. The sector plan anticipates primarily residential development in the upper Coolbrook neighborhood as well, with a mix of housing types and densities, and an opportunity for neighborhood-scale commercial development primarily fronting Frederick Road. As a supplement to the sector plan, a series of appendices are included to document the background information and process of the plan update. A final appendix, the Climate Assessment Report, was transmitted to you by the Planning Board just last week as an analysis of the plan's estimated impacts to future greenhouse gas emissions and climate resiliency and adaptation relative to a baseline future scenario if the sector plan was not adopted. Planning staff looks forward to discussing the findings of the Climate Action Plan and any other appendices and content you wish to discuss with us at future work sessions. Speaking of future council dates, this briefing is a precursor to your public hearing tomorrow night starting at 7 p.m. at Rocky Hill Middle School, the site of several of our community meetings since 2023. I understand there are 3 scheduled work sessions of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee on February 2nd, 11th, and 23rd to review testimony from the public hearing, as well as written testimony submitted to the council. We look forward to supporting you and your staff at these work sessions as you consider adoption of this plan in the coming month. This concludes my overview of the Planning Board draft of the Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Have you heard of the phrase divide and conquer?
No.
Next time, maybe. I
I'll
don't know
just
what
take
I'm
it all
saying.
myself.
I don't see any questions. We look forward. Thank you so much for all your work. And we were excited for the public hearing tomorrow. We're going to be on time. And I'll see you there. So with that, we're going to move on to the next item. And before I ask for a motion for the consent calendar, I'm going to ask Councilmember Kate Stewart to speak about one particular item on this list.
Thank you. Thank you to the Council President for providing me with an opportunity to speak to item B, the introduction and action on resolution to extend time for council action on Executive Regulation 21-25 Emergency Safety Plan for multifamily apartment buildings, extending it to June 30th, 2026. Just as a reminder for folks, in July of 2024, we passed and the county executive signed into law the Tenant Protection and Notification Bill, which, among other changes to our county code, requires landlords to notify tenants of fire and emergency plans and have those plans in place. As many of us know, we started working on this legislation after a fire took the life of Melanie Diaz at the Arrive apartment building, and we learned that there is no requirement currently, or there wasn't, in our multifamily buildings for a fire and emergency plan, and especially those buildings without sprinkler systems. Once this bill passed, we needed to have the regulations development by our Department of Permitting Services, and we just got those regulations in late November. It's now January 2026, and we are coming upon the 3rd anniversary of the Arrive fire and Melanie's death. I understand our need for this vote today to extend them given the timing of when we received the regulations in late November. And I'm glad and thank the PHP committee for taking this up in a timely manner, but I just wanted to explain to folks why we needed to have this extension, and just want to thank the PHP committee for scheduling this, and hopefully we can follow up soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Moved by Councilmember Sells, second by Councilmember Stewart. All those in favor, please raise your hand. The motion passes, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.